Hey guys, I'm Snacky and I'm here for another one of my deck decks, or as I'm gonna start calling them, the late night snack decks. Alright, so today we are going to be conquering Chatterfang's Playground, which is one of my Chatterfang decks that I conceptualized with a little bit of stronger mana ramp than what I currently have for it, and what I would do to it if I had extras for copies of my CEDH deck. So let's go through a little bit of the list together. So Chatterfang is a 3/3 with Forest Walk and is a Squirrel Warrior. And if one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green Squirrel creature tokens are also created. So you can also pay a black and sacrifice X squirrels. Target creature will get plus X, minus X until the end of the turn. It's a good way to possibly end the game if you have a ginormously large creature and you have the tokens to sacrifice to pump it up. Or it's a good way to just control the board, which is what I typically would look to do. So, I have a little bit of a token generator sub-theme, and we do have a couple of combo lines that I'll explain as well. So going throughout the list, we have. I can't see where my actual mouse is. We have Academy Manufacturer, which just creates more tokens off of creating a clue, food, or treasure token. We have Arasta, which might possibly be something I'm debating cutting. The Reach is a very good way of dealing with flying blockers that the deck kind of struggles with a little bit. We have Avenger of Zendikar. It just creates a bunch of plants, which is great for this list. It just wants to go wide, and you'll create as many squirrels as you're creating plants at the same time. You have Beast Whisper for card draw. There's 29 creatures, so you're going to be drawing cards as often as you can. Birds of Paradise for mana ramp. It's a little bit of mana fixing as well to make sure that you have that black mana just to invest into Chatterfang. We have Champion of Lambhole. He's one of the end games, and you can also just finale for him, and would you look at that, people can't block, so it's getting through. Compy Swarm is something that I'm testing around with a little bit. I think creating a bunch of Compy Swarms at the end of each end step, well, at the beginning of your end step, I should say, because each Compy Swarm will have a chance to copy itself, so it'll just get more and more and more each time, which is always great for Compy Swarm. And your scroll count. We have Elvish Mystic here as well, just more mana fixing. We have Experimental Confectioner, which I will get to. Creates a food, just good ways of token generation. Whenever you sacrifice food, you create a black rat creature token. It's very good. It's part of the combo, which we will touch base on towards the end. We have Finhorn Elves, which is just mana fixing here. We have, I have to zoom out a tad. We have Galagreeters, which works very well with Chatterfang. So you cast the Galagreeters, then you cast the Chatterfang, and Chatterfang enters the battlefield. You'll create a tap treasure token. After you create the tap treasure token, then you'll get a Squirrel. The Squirrel will then put a 1/1 counter on Galagreeters, and from there on out, whenever you play one creature, you'll get every single mode. We have Gilded Goose, which is a food creator, which also creates a treasure. It just adds a little bit of text from Chatterfang onto each of these creatures, which makes them astronomically better. It's a little bit of mana fixing for our foods, and it's a way to kind of gain some life as well, or even have a token generator just on the board, because you can even tap it just to create a food. So Gothmog Lieutenant is Morgul Lieutenant is a fantastic creature that I found recently. It gives your tokens Death Touch, so it makes them fantastic blockers, it makes them fantastic attackers, and this deck typically wants to be on the offensive, so Gothmog, very good for the deck. We have Imperious Perfect here, which I'm experimenting around with a little bit. It might also be on the chopping block. It's kind of a little slow for the deck's theme, and just another token generator. It helps out the sub-elf theme of the deck that are in here. We have Ivy Lane Denizen, which also is one of the combo pieces. Whenever a green creature enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. It goes infinite with another creature that we will be getting down to in a moment. We have Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. It's just good ramp based off of our tokens. It even allows our foods to tap for mana as well. Same goes for the clues. We have Lathril, Blade of Elves, which also could possibly be on the cutting block. Most of the elves in this deck are kind of not fitting the theme, but they still create tokens, so it kind of fits the theme a little bit, so you never know what you're going to need, because the blockers might actually matter at the end of the day. And I think also tapping the elves would help a little bit just to give me a little bit of life gain if people are trying to pressure my life total. We have Mirkwood Bats. It's part of a combo here. You just create or sacrifice creature tokens and opponents will lose life. Very good. We have Namada, Primal Warden. Gonna zoom out a little bit so that y'all can see. We have Namada, Primeval Warden, which has reach, and if an opponent's creature would die when you do, you exile it and create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. And then you can use those sapling creature tokens to either buff Namada, or you can sack it to draw cards, which is super good for card advantage. We have our Orcish Bowmaster here, which is just a very good staple in the Commander format, which Orcish Bowmasters in itself just creates a massively large army, and also it deals 1 damage to any target whenever someone draws anything past their first card for turn. We have Peregrine Took, which is one of the other combo pieces for Experimental Confectioner. The way that the combo works is if you have at least 1 food on the battlefield before the Experimental Confectioner enters the battlefield, which I'll bring him back up, you will have 3 foods because he creates a food when he enters, and Peregrine Took will also make an additional food. You can sacrifice 3 foods, you'll draw a card. An Experimental Confectioner says whenever you sacrifice a food, create a 1/1 black creature token with this creature can't block. For each of those rats entering, you will stack those triggers on the stack 1 by 1 by 1, and then you'll create 3 more foods and continue your combo line from there on out, creating infinite creature tokens. And if you have a way to take advantage of food tokens coming into play, or even the rat tokens coming into play, you could just use that and create infinite mana and win the game that way. Going a little bit deeper into this, we have Pitiless Plunder, which whenever another creature you control dies, you create a treasure token. So it's just a great way to even get treasures off of sacking your after you sack off your squirrels, you'll get treasure tokens, which will create the squirrels once again if Chatterfang's out on the board. So essentially Chatterfang's ability becomes free with this out, and 1 squirrel. You just kill the entire board by activating Chatterfang a million times. It's one of the best cards in the deck. We have Reclamation Sage, which is just good artifact destruction. Oh, let me move this down. That might actually help a little bit. There we go. Then we have one of the other parts of the combo. We have Squirrel. So Squirrel has evolved, and whenever one or more 1/1 counters are put on it, you may create a 1/1 green squirrel token. So Squirrel, if you have this on the field and then you go and you cast your Ivy Lane Denizen, whenever another green creature enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 creature, a 1/1 counter on target creature. You can cast them in either order, and it will start creating infinite squirrel tokens because you get a 1/1 green squirrel whenever you play a green creature. Well, whenever it gets a 1/1 counter. So it'll evolve off of the Ivy Lane Denizen, and you will consistently create as many creatures as you want off of the Squirrel, because the Squirrel tokens will trigger the Ivy Lane and put a 1/1 counter on the Squirrel, and repeat this process for as long as you would like. You create an infinitely large army of 1/1 squirrels, and you have an infinitely large Squirrel. Creates 2 infinites, and there's no way for them to really stop the combo unless they just kill your Squirrel or counter the ability. We then have Scute Swarm, which is whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 1/1 green insect. But if you have 6 or more lands, you create a copy of Scute Swarm instead. This gets very hard to keep track of after you have approximately 6 Scute Swarms, because it gets astronomically larger with the more lands that you have out. Tireless Provisioner is whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a food or treasure token. So, with Chatterfang, it reads this plus a 1/1 squirrel. Pretty good staple for the deck. It's good mana fixing, and also it helps you get to that food count that you really need to go for the experimental confectioner line, which should be your primary line throughout the deck. We have Tireless Tracker, which whenever a land enters the battlefield, you get to investigate and get a clue. And then Tireless Tracker just gets bigger for each clue that you sacrifice, regardless if you pay the 2 to sacrifice it or not. It's just good clue generation, good token generation. You can't argue with fair treasures, well, with fair clues. You have Toski, Bearer of Secrets, which is primarily in here just to draw cards, which, who's going to argue with drawing cards? Viserys here as well is just in here for card advantage. As we move on, we have our sorceries. We have Ball Aged Recovery, which serves as a land on the back side. It also helps us get back our resources. We have Beseech the Mirror, which is a tutor. And all of our tutors are pretty much free because you just bargain a token. You have Cultivate, just mana ramp. Demonic Tutor, which is just a very, very basic tutor. Diabolic Intent, you just go and tutor for one of your combo pieces. Farseek, it's just basic mana ramp. Your Finale is one of your other lines. You have 3 lines on the deck. This is the 3rd line. Play Finale, you end the game. You have Grim Tutor here, which you just search your library for a card, put in your hand. Puts it straight to the hand instead of putting it on the top. I feel like it could be better than Vampiric Tutor in most cases. We have Kadama's Reach, which just grabs 2 basic land cards, puts 1 into play, 1 in the hand. Very good. Good ramp. Same goes for Nature's Lure. It's just here for mana ramp. Gets your mana count up a little bit faster, so you can have more of those explosive turns. We have Pest Infestation in here, which is good artifact destruction, plus it also creates tokens, so it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. And you can also sacrifice them just in case you have anything that you need with sacrifice lines. So works very, very well to enable the line that you have with infinite mana and just killing the board and controlling it. We have Read the Bones, which just is super slow card draw, but it's still card draw at the end of the day. You just scry 2, draw 2, lose 2. Can't argue with that. We have Sylvan Tutor here, which will search your library for a creature card, you reveal it, and then you put it on top. It's one of the worst tutors that I think, but if of all the tutors in this deck, I think at sorcery speed to put a creature on top, you're in a little bit of a more casual format, but you do have combo lines. So Sylvan Tutor does help out because all your combos are primarily creature lines. In the instant section of the deck, we have Arachnogenesis, which is a very interesting fog effect that I decided to run just to keep myself alive just in case someone goes infinite and you have Arachnogenesis in hand and they say, I win, and then you say, okay, how much are you attacking? And they say all of it, and then you say, okay, alright, you actually die. We have Beast Within here, just good removal. Same goes for Deadly Dispute, in which you're just drawing cards, creating treasure tokens. We have Hero's Downfall here, which is just creature destruction as well. Our Heroic Intervention is here to give us a little bit of protection. Same goes for Saw in Half, which will double the problem up in most cases. Second Harvest works very well with Saw in Half. It'll just create 2 more permanents of any tokens that we have in play. So Saw in Half will allow you to saw one of your creatures in half, and then you get to create a copy of each token that you control. Saw in Half says, oh cool, you do that again. So you have 4 copies of, say, let's use Pitiless Plunderer for example. So you have 4 copies of Pitiless Plunderer, and now you have, whenever a creature dies, you get 4 treasures. So you just sacrifice off 1 creature, and then you get 4 treasures, and you just go infinite from there. Fantastic line that I love going for in this deck. We have Sot's Will, which is a good way of controlling the graveyard, and you create thralls as well. You typically won't cast this unless you have your commander out. It's not one of the greatest cards, but it's a good way of saying someone's trying to end the game with a card in their graveyard. It also stops breach lines very interestingly enough. So you have that. We have Vampiric Tutor here, which puts the card right on top of it, and you'll lose 2 life. Not as good of a tutor as some of the green tutor, well, some of the sorcery speed tutors that we have in the deck, but still you can just do it at the end of someone's turn, and you're setting yourself up to win. We have Verdant Command, which is one of our only counters in the deck, which I found out the other day actually is a counter spell. You can create Squirrel tokens, or you can counter the loyalty ability of a Planeswalker, which typically will not happen. Or you exile a card from a graveyard, but you get to choose too, so you can do more than one of these, or gain 3 life, which typically will never happen. We have Worldly Tutor as our final instant here, which is one of our instant speed tutors that don't cost anything other than a green, and you just put it right on top. No restrictions on it, just a creature. Then we'll move over to our artifacts. There's not a lot over here. We have Arcane Signet, which most of our artifacts here are primarily here for ramp. We have Felwar Stone as well. Same goes for Guild Lotus, Golgari Signet. Skull Clamp is here for card draw on all the smaller creatures. We have Skyclave Relic, which interestingly enough I kicked for the first time the other day, and I got to do it with a token doubler in play, so I got 4 Skyclave Relics, so it felt super good. It's just good mana ramp, and no one expects you to pay 6 to create 3 mana consistently every turn. But you also get 2 scrolls off of it, so not the worst at the end of the day. We have Soul Ring here, just typical mana ramp, acceleration, and Talisman Resistance will finish off our artifacts. For our enchantments, we have Doubling Season. Why not have a doubler? But why not have 2 with Parallel Lives? We have Sylvan Anthem, which is great card selection. Since we do not run a Sensei Stop in the deck, this very much helps us with all the creatures that we're getting off of Chatterfang. Because they are green squirrels, you will scry off of every single one of them. I think it's fantastic tech for the deck that I haven't seen in a lot of lists, and it's dirt cheap. Zendikar Resurgent, cards dropping to like its all-time low, and it's fantastic card draw and double mana. It's one of the best ones in the format, and not sure why it's continuing to plummet. But as we will, before we move on to the lands, we're going to move to the sideboard first, and I'll explain why these cards are not in the list and what they essentially got replaced by. So Everglades is one of the first lands that we cut from this list. Everglades got replaced by a Gaia's Cradle that I do have in one of my other lists. We have Chitter Spitter, which I feel in most cases is a little slow, and I haven't been the biggest fan of it just because it's just an anthem effect, and typically anthem effects in more casual games don't perform the best. We have Elvish Warmaster as well that we ended up cutting. We're slowly cutting the elf package out, and this was the weakest of the elf package. We have Endrixar Master Breeder. Sometimes this just reads cast one spell and then sacrifice it, so it's not that great. We have Griswold the Dreadsower that we ended up cutting, helping out other people by creating plants doesn't really help, but he does get bigger, so it's kind of a trade-off. You can always just grab him as well off of a tutor, so he's possibly looking to come back in for cutting out the elf package, but we'll have to see in the ongoing months. We have Mycolith as well, which at the beginning of your upkeep you'll create a 1/1 green sapling creature took for each 1/1 counter on him. And he has Devour too when he comes into play. I just feel like waiting until the next turn is a little too slow for Mycolith, and it can just eat a removal spell, and you're just going to be really sad that you sacrificed a bunch of creatures just for it to be destroyed on the same turn that you played it. It feels like you lost more than what you paid the 5 mana for it. And Path to Ancestry, it just comes into play tapped, so that's why we decided to cut it. We put in a little bit more of a package in the lands to really fix our mana. So with that being said, let's move into the land so we can see what we made these cuts for. The first thing is Bayou. Bayou is just a dual land, Blooded Woodland. We've got a very easy tutor. Helps you go grab some basics. Bajuka Bog, it's just good graveyard hate. We have Castle Lochthwain, which is just card draw. It reads pay 2 life to draw one. It doesn't hurt that much, but it's always good to have extra card advantage, because card advantage wins games. City of Brass, good fixing, does hurt, but you gotta pay the cost sometimes to make sure you have what you need. Command Tower, which is free and it's just a staple in every command deck. We have Darkboard Pathway, which is one of the flip lands, which goes into green as well. So you'll just play it on whatever side that you need it on any day of the week. We have Exotic Orchard, which is just fixing for mana that opponents have, which typically is only going to be one of these colors, or in some cases it could be both, so can't always be the worst. Fabled Passage, very good fetch, just helps us go and grab some of our basics, which we do not run a lot of. We have Forbidden Orchard here, which, yes, it does create a token for our opponents, but it's still fixing for us. And it's only a 1/1, it's not like it flies, and I'm sure we'll create more than what they're going to get off of this. We have 3 forests in the list, and a Gaia's Cradle, which is fantastic with this list to really help us accelerate our mana and get those things out that we would like. Gemstone Mine, which comes into the battlefield with 3 1/1 counters on it, but if it gets to 0 counters, you'll sacrifice it. It's still very decent mana, and it's worth the trade-off of sacrificing it after you tap it for 3 turns. Llanowar Waste, it's a pain land, can't argue with it. Same goes for Mana Confluence. Misty Rainforest helps us go and grab our basics or even our duels in most cases. Nurturing Peatland, it reads draw a card, or even it's another pain land just for the time being. Then we have Overgrown Tomb, which mana fixing. It does hurt a little to play it untapped, but sometimes you don't need it untapped. We have Reflecting Pool, which is just very easy mana fixing. Spire of Industry, which adds 1 mana of any color, but you have to pay a life for it, and you can only activate that if you control an artifact. But you're thinking, Blake, why are you running this? You don't run that many artifacts. There's only 8 in the deck. I hear you. But creating a food is an artifact. Same goes for clues, same goes for treasures. So as long as you have a treasure out, a clue, or a food, this isn't the end of the world. It'll always tap for mana. Whether it's colorless or colored is kind of up to what you have at the time. So sometimes this card's good, sometimes this card is bad. But most of the time this card's going to be good for you and just reads a pain land just in another slot that you can run. We run 2 swamps in our list. We have Swarmyard, which is very good tech just to keep our general alive. Same goes for some of the creatures that we want to keep alive in the deck as well. Insect, Rat, Spider, or Squirrel, which only 3 of these would pertain now because we do have Rat and we do have... Oh, actually no, all of these matter. We do have Scute Swarm, which is an insect. We have Twilight Mire, which helps our fixing a little bit more. Underground Moriarty, which I'm testing out a little bit to see if it's good, but it's fetchable, which makes it interesting. So if you don't need the mana, you can always grab this, and you can even surveil one, see if you actually need that card on top. I decided to take out the Temple in order to test this out to see how it performs. We have Undergrowth Stadium, which is just a battle bond land. If you have 3 opponents, you'll always make sure that this is going to come into play untapped. And in most typical Commander games, it will come into play untapped anyways. We have Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. It just helps your fixing. Make sure that all of your stuff taps for colors if it doesn't already. We have Verdant Catacombs, which is a fetch land to go and grab anything that we need. A Windswept Heath, same concept for Wooded Foothills as well. And then we have Woodland Cemetery, which is one of our check lands in the deck and one of our only check lands that Wizards of the Coast has given us for green-black. And to finish it off, we have Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, which serves the same purpose as Urborg. It just gives us the other half that we need. But thank you for tuning into my deck tech for Chatterfang's Playground. Let me know if this is something that you like to see. If you enjoyed the video, please comment down below. The link for the list, if you didn't catch something, is going to be in the description below. But thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys on the next video. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.